Hello, everyone. I'm Beatrice Verhoeven, film editor at TheWrap, and we're so happy to have you here for our 2021 Awards and International Screening Series. Today, we're excited to bring you This Is Paris, a Best Documentary entry. We're going to be showing you the trailer of the movie, and then we'll go right into a conversation with director Alexander Dean and film subject Paris Hilton. To our audience, please participate in the live chat of the stream, share your thoughts about the film, and do let us know where everyone is tuning in from. Now, before we introduce our guests, here is the trailer for This Is Paris.
All right, we can go back to it again, real walk.
What do you mean I'm not on a runway?
I feel like the whole world thinks they know me.
That's hot. That's hot.
Sorry, I'm so used to like playing a character that it's like hard for me to like be normal.
No one really knows who I am.
I'm always putting on this facade or just like happy, perfect life.
Are you happy?
Sometimes.
They say trauma, the mind may forget, but the body never forgets. It's trapped in you, and it can come out whenever.
I don't even know who I am sometimes. I didn't used to be that way.
Something happened in my childhood that I've never talked about with anyone.
I just heard screaming, bloody murder.
But I couldn't tell you guys because every time I tried, I'd get punished by them. I still have nightmares about it.
Here we are, Paris is school.
And the only thing that saved my sanity was thinking about who I wanted to become when I got out of there.
Just created this brand and this persona and this character, and I've been stuck with her ever since.
Is that enough?
No.
Welcome back, and it's my pleasure to introduce director Alexander Dean and film subject Paris Hilton. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you guys all tuning in from?
Los Angeles. Yeah, LA.
Same. Great. We're like all connected. Not really. So I watched the documentary and I loved it. I mean, to the extent of loving such a in-depth, look into your life, Paris. And I think I wanted to start off with this question for both of you. How did the production of this documentary come about? Who reached out to whom? What was the process like? Walk me through that.
Well, I was introduced to Alex from IPC, and when we had our meeting, I immediately fell in love with her and thought that she was perfect for this film. I watched her other film called Bombshell with Hedy Lamarr and just thought it was incredible, and I just knew right away that she would be the perfect director for this film.
Mine is a little different. I was coming off of Bombshell, the Hedy Lamarr story, and looking for a subject. I guess we were kind of, bought together by IPC, the production company, but equally, I was looking for a subject that could help me with a question I had coming out of Bombshell about people today. And that question was, could I find somebody who kind of embodied that same beauty and controversy and also the brilliant mind and the change maker like Hedy Lamarr, who was also completely kind of unseen today and had a story we didn't know, someone hiding in plain sight. So I was looking for that subject, and IPC approached me about would I like to do a documentary on Hedy Lamarr as my follow-up to Bombshell with Paris Hilton. And I had a little interview Skype with her, and we really connected. It was very interesting. It was like a sister connection.
When was that? And how long did you guys go into production for?
Production was about a year, wasn't it, Paris? We were in production for about a year, and we were connected just before production began. We leapt into it very fast.
What year did you start, the process of this?
2015, right?
Yeah, 2018. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a century ago, but it's not. But in COVID, a year is like 10 years.
10 years ago. Historic times we started this film.
Amazing. And I mean, there are many different, things that we can see. We go into your home, we go into late at night, we follow you on trips, we follow you to stage on Tomorrowland. Was there anything that you felt a little bit of trepidation having films? Was there something that you just didn't want to be filmed, or were you pretty open?
I was pretty open. I've been on camera for so long that I'm very used to it, but this was completely different than anything I've ever done, because usually when I've been on camera, I was in a reality show, I was playing a character, and this is the first time where I really just let down that mask and was completely myself. So it was difficult to be so vulnerable, for sure, but I'm so grateful that I was.
Yeah, and I know that Nikki said the same, that she's never really done an interview like this before. And Alexandra, what was the process like getting Nikki to be involved? And I'm sure, Paris, you talked to her as well and wanted her to be a part of this.
Yeah, Paris made the ask that Nikki talked to me on the phone first. And you saw Nikki, she's, quite a bright lady herself and very sharp. So she grilled me the first time we got on the phone and, wanting to make sure that this was really going to be a thoughtful and honest portrait of her sister. I was impressed that honesty was what she was looking for, and straightforwardness, and also a point of view that was, a lot more complex and three-dimensional than anything she'd seen done on her sister before. So we really connected on that. I feel like my vision was very much what she was hoping it would be. And then, slowly she thought about it and she decided to do it. And I think it made all the difference.
And speaking of Paris, how you had never done anything like this before, and you were letting us into your lives, you were letting Alexandra into your life. There was a part of the documentary at the very beginning where you get asked to, walk around the house, and Alexandra says, do your real walk, and you're like, I'm not on the catwalk. So I was wondering how it was for you to, turn off for the cameras and let the real you shine through.
It was very difficult. I was so nervous because I'd never shown my true self before. And it was much easier before just to hide behind this character and always be playing it. So to actually stop doing that and just be myself was something so new to me. But I'm happy that I did. But it did take me a while, actually, because in the beginning I was still doing it, and it was just something I was just so used to doing for so long. And then I just became so close with Alex, and we started shooting together with a very small crew. Sometimes it would only be her and I in a room together. And that's when I would be most vulnerable and real, and really just start talking about things that I had never even spoken about with my closest friends or family members.
Yeah, and there's it's interesting because there's shots of you speaking to the camera, but then there's also your voiceover work with the graphics and the reenactments of your time at school. And I wanted to touch on that too. I was wondering, after you did this voiceover work, recounting your experience, did you ever have to decompress after? Did you, have to take time to really think about things? Because even your mom in the documentary is like, I've never heard of this before. Like, this is the first time you're really speaking out about it.
It was definitely a lot to process and very emotional, because I had never talked about it with anyone. I'd never really let myself think about it, because it was just such traumatic experiences that I just wanted to block from my mind and pretend that they never happened. So to actually have to speak about them and relive them was very hard. And sometimes after we'd be shooting a scene or doing voiceover, I would just break down in tears and be crying, just with all these memories flooding back. It was a very therapeutic experience, and now has been one of the most healing experiences of my life.
Yeah. And Alexandra, what's for you the most important thing you learned about Paris, and what do you think fans can really take away from watching This Is Paris?
I learned that I didn't know her at all.
Same.
Right? I had no idea who this person was. And I had grown up with her image all over the place. And I'd wondered about her. I'd been curious about the obsession as well. And I really learned who she is. You know, now I think of her as a, you know, very dear person and a very funny person, very boyish in a lot of ways. And it's very different than the image. And like getting to know that was a really delightful journey for me. It was really wonderful, but also it did raise all these questions for me as we went through this together. And I began to learn about her trauma layer by layer and began to really ask her how that had informed this person that we all knew. So I learned also how she created this person that was a mirage in many ways, that we'd all fallen for, that we'd all kind of worshipped on the magazine covers for so many years. And I learned that that was very difficult for her. You know, many people think that's the ideal lifestyle. Social influencers are trying to get to that lifestyle every day. And so I think it's important to understand that that was a difficult transformation for Paris, and that in many ways she needed to find a way back to who she really is.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think I also learned that, Paris, you truly love your fans. I mean, there are so many celebrities out there that like love their fans, but it gets overwhelming, you know? And for you, and you say it in the documentary too, it makes you feel less alone. And I thought that was so fascinating because you genuinely want to see your fans, and you know, those 2 fans that flew out to see you, you were so appreciative and made sure that they felt love from you, which I thought was fascinating.
Thank you. I love my fans like my little brothers and sisters. And I feel so lucky to have such a close relationship with them. And like I said in the film, like I honestly feel closer to some of my fans than I do to most people that I know in my real life. And it's they have really helped me feel less alone. Just, you know, having to travel every day, basically out of the years for the past 2 decades, and just being alone all around the world, having them around just made me feel like I wasn't alone anymore. And I'm so lucky to have them, and I really, really love them so much. My family.
Travels truly aren't vacation. Like I had no idea you only took 1 vacation in how many years?
Like 20 something, long time.
That's wild. And you see, you know, your social media presence, everyone's social media presence. You see, you know, you jetting all over the world, but it's not vacation. And that was something I think that is really enlightening in the documentary as well.
Yeah.
I'd argue it really wasn't a vacation anyway, because she invited us along.
Exactly, but it still looked gorgeous. So Mykonos is amazing.
Oh.
It was beautiful. Oh my God.
I also wanted to touch, Alexandra, you briefly mentioned the influencer part of it. And, you know, in the documentary, it also talks about how you were quote unquote the original influencer, right? And everything we do on social media is something you started in terms of how selfies, you know, for example, which is what we love to do these days. What would you say to a 13-year-old girl now? I know you said in the documentary you can't imagine what it's like to be a 13-year-old girl now.
I can't imagine. It must just be so just painful sometimes, and just having to live up to these standards and with the filters and all. Just I feel very lucky that I didn't have to live through that as a teenager, because it just, the pressures of it must be just so overwhelming. So my advice to them would be that don't put so much, you know, so much of your self-worth based on other people's opinions of you, especially strangers. And you are beautiful, and you don't need all of this, and there's much more to life. Yeah, because there's so many young girls today who just base, you know, all their self-worth, all their happiness based upon comments and likes and follows, and it's just not real. And there's just so much more to life than that.
Great. I think everyone should hear that because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 30 and I still feel a sense of self-worth coming from Instagram,
Yeah.
which is unnecessary, but I think that's a good message for sure. Going back to the documentary, I was wondering what for both of you was maybe the most daunting scene or part of your, filmmaking process that, you had to overcome.
For me, it was in South Korea when we were there in my hotel room after a really long day of work, and that was the first time that I opened up to Alex about what had happened to me, like the beginning of, the experiences I went through and the abuse and just all the traumatic parts. And that was just like me kind of opening up the door to that and speaking about it for the first time. So that was a very scary moment for me, for sure.
Alexandra?
Yeah, South Korea was scary for me too. It was a lot to ask of Paris, and I didn't know when to ask. And then we had been up I felt like we'd been up for 48 hours straight at that point. And so I was a little delirious as well. And I think, we were both in a very real place because we were so exhausted, and I've been following Paris on this relentless schedule. And I felt like we both didn't really have any defenses. We were just trying to kind of get through it. And so I thought it was a good time to ask her, real questions about this life that she's living in, this wheel that she was on pre-COVID anyway. And I really was delighted and amazed that she would open up the way she did, but she also gave me so much food for thought in that first interview, and that kind of ended up charting the course for the rest of the film. And I would say the other hardest scene was the last scene when we got everyone together and Paris was talking to all these girls that she'd gone to school with and realizing that this was something that had happened to all of them. And just watching that have this impact on Paris and trying to figure out how to document that, how to show everyone what a big impact this was having on her. And then she tapped my shoulder and ran upstairs, and that's how we got that scene where she is in the closet, and she really did confess that to me on camera, which was incredible.
I do want to talk about, the last scene in a little bit, but, going off COVID, has COVID given you some reprieve and time to relax? Are you sleeping better? I know that was a very big part of your last 25 years in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely been a whole new world for everyone, and it's a scary time in the world, and my heart goes out to everyone, but I always try to see the silver lining, and that is that I needed this break because I've not stopped, and this is the first time I've been forced to be in one place, and now it's been almost a year, and I've never been in a better place in my life. I'm in an incredible relationship where I feel safe, and I'm just so happy, and I finally feel like the world understands me, and I'm just so proud of this film, and I'm now finally sleeping. I don't have nightmares anymore for the first time since I'm a teenager. And I think because I spoke about all of that and let go of all the experiences I went through, that made it go away from my dreams, which is very weird because I was so used to literally having these nightmares that were so real every night since I was 16 years old. So to have those stop has been such a relief, and to actually be able to sleep, and I'm so happy.
So I had no idea, Paris, that your nightmares had stopped until you just said that. And I have to say, it's very moving for me to hear that, because I hoped that doing all this and going through all this trauma with you was going to result in that, but I had no idea. And I was worried, of course, about kicking up all those memories and going deeper and deeper into it and going to these places you weren't even sure you wanted to go. So the fact that going through that journey has ended in this positive place like, it means a lot to me as a filmmaker. And I think a lot of filmmakers out there probably need to hear that, because I think there's a point for all of us where we wonder, is this the right thing to be doing? And I think in this case, yeah, it was the right place to go. So I'm really happy to hear that.
You're making me cry. I couldn't have done it without you. And I love you so much. I'm so grateful to you. You changed my life. And I'll always be grateful to you. I love you so much. Thank you. And they stopped. I did say that in the movie. That was one of the things I said. I said, maybe if I help their nightmares go away, mine will too. And I didn't know they ever would, but they did. Thank you. Because of you.
Very much. Thank you.
Love you.
Love you.
What did you think of when you watched the documentary for the first time, completely in its entirety?
I loved it, but I was also very nervous because I had no idea how the world was going to react, because this was the first time where I really put myself out there and talked about everything. And there was a lot of parts where I was like, oh my God, I want to cut that out. But I didn't, because I really trusted Alex. I knew that she put together this really powerful film. And I just was like, you know what? The whole world has seen so much of me, and this is the real truth. So we kept everything in. Like, nothing was cut out.
It's absolutely true. Everything is in there.
Wow.
And Paris looked a little shaken at parts of the first viewing. She really was. And I understood that. I felt shaky. It was really hard to show her, because I felt like, she had been so raw, and I didn't know how it was going to feel to be her. And I really felt like we really hadn't glossed over anything. We had tried to be really, really honest. And but I think it was made with great empathy and understanding at the same time. So I hope that it would come through as something that she felt was true and that she related to and she could own.
Yeah, and everything obviously culminates in the final scene we just briefly spoke about. And I was hoping both of you could kind of shed a little light on, Paris, how did you find all these survivors? Even, I forget her name, but she says that it took her, she tried to find everyone herself and she couldn't, and you found her in a day.
Well, it was actually Alexandra, myself, and Catherine all together looking for everyone. And, thank goodness for technology today, where you can find someone if you really look. And it was just amazing to get together again with them and to be out free in the world. And it was just emotional as well, just to be talking about everything and reliving all of that again. But I'm so happy that I reconnected with them, and just now that it's caused this entire movement, I just feel just so proud. And I know that me being there as a little girl would be so proud of the woman that I am today.
Paris, I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about the movement. And are there any plans to, expand on the movement, especially, this being a documentary entry? What's the next step?
Yes, ever since the film was premiered, there has been so much change. I've spoken to people in the industry that they said because of this film, there's been more change happening than there has in the past 15 years of people trying. And now I've been working with legislators and senators, and we just got accepted into the RISE social justice program, which was developed by a woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize. And now we're going to be working with people and pushing legislation to put a stop to the abuse and really make a difference. And I've spoken to so many families where after watching the film, they've pulled their children out of Provo Canyon School and other schools like it, and they're finally being held accountable, and just speaking to thousands of survivors, and just them thanking me and saying that they've never been believed, and they're finally being believed and validated for what they went through. And it's it's so incredible that this is going to save children's lives and also other people who went through the same thing. And I'm not going to stop. This is just the beginning, and I'm going to keep fighting for this until this stops and change happens.
And the only response we've gotten from the school is that the ownership changed, right? And that anything that happens for a period of time, they can't account for.
Yeah, that's their excuse. But I've spoken to people who literally have gotten pulled out of there a week ago, and the same thing is happening. There's some of the same staff that are still working there from when I was there. So there has been no change. Like, I've even heard scarier stories than what I was even seeing back then that are happening today.
And there's other schools that you went to that you also detailed in the documentary. The one school that was kind of like a military camp, right? They were highly abusive too. Did you ever kind of take them to task as well? Did you ever reach out to them?
All of these schools are being held accountable for. Provo is just the one that I knew that would be the first one that I wanted to go down. And then from there, it's going to have a ripple effect, because this is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry where they're profiting off the abuse of children. So all of them are going to be held accountable for what they've done.
Well, thank you so much for, starting this movement and making sure that people are being held accountable. I think this is obviously happening in many different schools all around the world.
Yes.
So this is very important. And I thank you so much for both of you joining me today and to talk about this. So great to have you. And congratulations on This is Paris.
Thank you.
And for everyone listening, be sure to take advantage of our free trial to Wrap Pro and be first to know about upcoming Wrap screenings and events. And you can also check back on our screenings page, screenings.thewrap.com as well. Thank you so much.